When people talk about unsolved crimes, there are usually two things that make a case unforgettable. The first is the victim. The second is the question that refuses to go away. Sometimes investigators don't know who committed the crime. Sometimes they don't know how it happened. And in the rarest cases, they spend decades arguing about both. The murder of 6-year-old JonBenét Patricia Ramsey is one of those cases. More than 2 decades later, investigators, prosecutors, detectives, forensic experts, journalists, and even members of the same investigative team have disagreed over what happened inside a home in Boulder, Colorado, on the night of December 25, 1996. Some believe the answer was inside the house all along. Others believe the killer entered from outside. There was a ransom note. There was DNA. There were conflicting theories, contaminated evidence, and a crime scene that became one of the most scrutinized in American history. And perhaps the most unsettling part is that despite all the attention, all the investigations, and all the years that have passed, the case remains officially unsolved. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia. She was the younger of 2 children born to Patsy and John Ramsey. Her father was a businessman and president of Access Graphics, a computer company headquartered in Boulder. The family moved there in 1991. JonBenét became known for competing in child beauty pageants, winning several titles. After her death, those pageants would become a major focus of media coverage, helping turn the case into a national obsession. But on Christmas night in 1996, she wasn't a pageant contestant. She was simply a 6-year-old girl at home with her family. The only people known to be inside the Ramsey residence that night were JonBenét, her parents, and her 9-year-old brother, Burke. What happened during those hours would change all of their lives forever. Early on the morning of December 26th, Patsy Ramsey reported finding a handwritten ransom note on the kitchen staircase. The note was unlike anything investigators had seen before. It stretched across 2.5 pages and demanded exactly $118,000 in exchange for JonBenét's safe return. The amount immediately stood out. John Ramsey recognized that the figure was remarkably close to a Christmas bonus he had received the previous year. Investigators began wondering whether whoever wrote the note had access to information about the family's finances. The note instructed the family not to contact police. But at 5:52 that morning, Patsy called 911. She also contacted friends and relatives. Police arrived within minutes. At first, authorities believed they were dealing with a kidnapping. Officers conducted a search of the house but found no signs of forced entry. One officer reached a basement door secured by a wooden latch. He briefly paused but did not open it, believing it could not have served as an exit for a kidnapper because of how it was secured, and he walked away. What nobody realized at the time was that something critical was waiting on the other side of that door. As the morning continued, more people arrived at the Ramsey home. Friends came to offer support. A family minister appeared. Victim advocates arrived. People moved throughout the house. Some cleaned surfaces, others picked up items. Meanwhile, the home was not fully secured as a crime scene. At the time, investigators still believed JonBenét had been kidnapped. Hours passed. The expected phone call from the kidnappers never came. No one attempted to collect the ransom money. And then, shortly after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, everything changed. Detective Linda Arndt asked John Ramsey and a family friend named Fleet White to search the house again and see if anything seemed out of place. They started in the basement. John Ramsey opened the same latched door that had previously been overlooked. Inside was JonBenét. Her mouth had been covered with duct tape. A cord was found around her wrists and neck. A white blanket covered part of her body. John immediately carried his daughter upstairs. In doing so, critical evidence at the scene was disturbed. What had begun as a kidnapping investigation instantly became a homicide investigation. The autopsy would reveal devastating findings. JonBenét had suffered a skull fracture. She had also died from strangulation associated with severe head trauma. Her death was ruled a homicide. Investigators also discovered evidence of a vaginal injury. While there was no evidence of conventional rape, sexual assault could not be ruled out. Around her neck was a garrote made from nylon cord and part of a broken paintbrush. The paintbrush had come from supplies belonging to Patsy Ramsey. Police later found part of the brush, but another section was never recovered despite extensive searches. Then there was another detail. The autopsy identified vegetable or fruit material that could have been pineapple. Photographs taken inside the home showed a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon inside it. Yet according to reports, neither John nor Patsy remembered placing the bowl there or feeding pineapple to JonBenét. Authorities stated that Patsy's fingerprints were found on the bowl. It was one more mystery in a case that seemed to generate new questions every time investigators found an answer. And then there was the ransom note. The note became one of the most controversial pieces of evidence in the entire investigation. Investigators found not only the note itself, but also what appeared to be a practice draft. Both had been written using materials from inside the Ramsey home. The note was unusually long. According to information given to police by the FBI, ransom notes of that length were highly unusual, especially if written at the crime scene. Investigators also noted similarities between portions of the note and dialogue from several films. Handwriting became another battleground. Some experts believed there were indications that Patsy Ramsey wrote the note. Others disagreed. A federal court would later state that it was highly unlikely she authored it, citing multiple handwriting experts. Years later, debate over the note remains unresolved. Who wrote it? Why was it written? And if the writer was the killer, what were they trying to accomplish? Those questions helped divide the investigation into two competing theories. The first theory focused on the Ramsey family. Police initially concentrated heavily on JonBenét's parents. Investigators noted the lack of obvious forced entry and what they believed were signs that parts of the crime scene had been staged. Some theorized that JonBenét had been killed inside the home by a family member, and that the ransom note had been created afterward to conceal what happened. One theory suggested Patsy Ramsey struck JonBenét during a moment of anger, and that later actions were taken to cover up the incident. Other theories emerged over the years as public interest intensified. Yet, despite widespread speculation, important limitations remained. Burke Ramsey, who was 9 years old at the time, was interviewed multiple times. Investigators stated that he was not considered a suspect. In 1999, both police officials and the district attorney's office publicly reiterated that position. At the same time, a grand jury was reviewing evidence. In 1999, the jury voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey on charges related to child abuse and placing their daughter in a dangerous situation that resulted in her death. But there was a major twist. District Attorney Alex Hunter declined to sign the indictment. He stated that the evidence was insufficient to prove the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. As a result, no prosecution occurred. For many people following the case, that decision only deepened the uncertainty. Then another theory gained momentum, the intruder theory. Supporters of this theory argued that someone outside the family entered the home and committed the crime. Investigators identified factors they believed supported that possibility. There was an unidentified boot mark in the basement. Some windows had reportedly been left slightly open. A basement window had been broken. An unlocked door was also noted. Former Detective Lou Smith became one of the most prominent advocates for the intruder theory. After reviewing the evidence, he concluded that an outsider had committed the crime. He believed investigators had become too focused on the Ramsey family and had overlooked alternative explanations. Not everyone agreed. Critics pointed to undisturbed cobwebs and other details that raised questions about whether certain entry points had actually been used. Once again, the case split into competing interpretations of the same evidence, and then DNA entered the picture. In 2003, investigators extracted enough material from a blood sample found on JonBenét's underwear to establish a DNA profile. The DNA belonged to an unidentified male. According to the findings, the DNA did not match any member of the Ramsey family. The sample was submitted to the FBI's CODIS database. No match was found. Years later, additional testing generated further debate. Some investigators believed the DNA was highly significant. Others cautioned that trace DNA can appear on clothing through entirely innocent means and does not automatically identify a killer. Instead of resolving the mystery, the DNA became yet another source of disagreement. In 2008, District Attorney Mary Lacey announced that the Ramsey family had been excluded as suspects based on advances in DNA testing. She publicly exonerated them. But even that decision was not universally accepted. Some law enforcement officials argued that the available DNA evidence was too limited to definitively clear anyone. Others maintained that the unidentified male DNA should remain a central focus of the investigation. The disagreement persisted. Meanwhile, investigators continued pursuing leads. More than 1,600 people eventually appeared in police indexes as persons of interest. Hundreds of DNA comparisons were conducted. Numerous suspects were examined. One man even confessed to the crime in 2006 while in Thailand. But investigators found no evidence linking him to the scene, and his DNA did not match the DNA recovered from JonBenét. The confession ultimately went nowhere. As the years passed, the case became larger than the investigation itself. Television specials analyzed every detail. Books proposed competing explanations. Experts argued over forensic evidence. Former investigators publicly challenged one another's conclusions. And still, no definitive answer emerged. Today, the murder of JonBenét Ramsey remains an open homicide investigation. There is a ransom note that continues to spark debate. There is DNA belonging to an unidentified male. There are theories involving family members and theories involving an intruder. There are investigators who remain convinced they know what happened, and others who remain equally convinced they're wrong. But after all the headlines, all the speculation, and all the years spent searching for answers, the most important question remains the same one investigators faced on that December morning in 1996. Who killed JonBenét Ramsey? For now, that answer remains just out of reach, and that may be the most haunting part of this entire case.